The 3rd century BC, the Roman Republic, a rising power in the Mediterranean, cast a long shadow. Its legions, disciplined and relentless, expanded Rome's dominion. Yet, across the sea, Carthage, a maritime empire of immense wealth and power, stood as a bulwark against Roman expansion. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations, a struggle for supremacy that would determine the fate of the ancient world. And at the heart of this epic confrontation stood a general who would forever be remembered as one of the greatest military minds of all time, Hannibal Barca. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel Global Gateways, and don't forget to activate the bell button to stay updated with our latest content. Hannibal's name has become synonymous with military brilliance, often mentioned in the same breath as Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. Born into a noble Carthaginian family, Hannibal inherited a legacy of conflict with Rome. His father, Hannibal Barca, instilled in his son a deep-seated hatred for the Roman Republic. From a young age, Hannibal displayed a keen intellect and a natural aptitude for warfare. He accompanied his father on campaigns, observing firsthand the intricacies of military strategy and the brutal realities of combat. While Hannibal honed his skills, tensions between Rome and Carthage continued to simmer. The First Punic War had left deep scars on both sides, and the peace treaty that followed proved to be little more than a temporary truce. The flashpoint came in the form of a seemingly insignificant city in the Iberian peninsula, Saguntum. The siege of Saguntum drew Rome and Carthage into a conflict that neither side could ignore. Rome, outraged by Hannibal's aggression, declared war on Carthage, marking the beginning of the Second Punic War. When Hannibal assumed command of the Carthaginian forces in Iberia, he inherited a formidable army. Instead of engaging the Romans in a war of attrition, Hannibal decided on a bold maneuver. He would take the war to Rome itself, marching his army across the Pyrenees mountains, through the treacherous swamps of Gaul and over the towering Alps. The journey was fraught with peril, yet Hannibal's leadership never wavered. When Hannibal's army finally descended into the plains of Italy, they had achieved the unthinkable, and their presence sent shockwaves through the Roman Republic. The city of Carthage, founded in the 9th century BC, was a melting pot of cultures, a bustling hub of commerce and trade. It was into this world of prosperity and power that Hannibal Barca was born in 247 BC. The Barcids, Hannibal's clan, were among the most prominent families in Carthage, known for their military prowess and their unwavering ambition. Hannibal's early years were steeped in the grandeur and opulence of Carthaginian society. Yet, beneath the veneer of luxury, a current of tension ran through Carthaginian society, fueling a deep-seated resentment towards Rome. Among those who regaled Hannibal with tales of military exploits was his own father, Hannibal Barca. Under Hamilcar's tutelage, Hannibal's military education began in earnest. Hannibal learned to analyze terrain, anticipate enemy movements, and adapt his tactics to exploit any weakness. He accompanied his father on campaigns in Iberia, witnessing firsthand the brutality of war and the complexities of commanding a diverse army. These lessons, deeply ingrained in Hannibal's character, would serve him well throughout his illustrious career. The bond between Hannibal and his father ran deep, forged in shared ambition and a burning desire to see Carthage rise again. In a solemn ceremony as a 9-year-old boy, Hannibal swore an oath over a sacrificial altar, pledging to devote his life to the cause of Carthage and the destruction of Rome. While Hamilcar continued his campaigns in Iberia, Hannibal remained in Carthage, continuing his education and honing his skills. As Hannibal grew older, his reputation as a brilliant military strategist and a charismatic leader spread throughout Carthage. In 228 BC, tragedy struck the Barca family. Hamilcar was killed in battle, throwing the young Carthaginian into deep mourning. The death of Hamilcar Barca left a void in Carthaginian leadership, a void that his son-in-law, Hasdrubal the Fair, stepped in to fill. Hasdrubal recognized Hannibal's military talents and appointed him to a command position within the Carthaginian army. Over the next few years, Hannibal proved himself to be a brilliant and ruthless commander, securing victories against rebellious Iberian tribes. While Hannibal honed his military skills in Iberia, the political landscape between Carthage and Rome remained tense. The stage was set for another confrontation, a clash of civilizations that would determine the fate of the Mediterranean world. In 221 BC, upon Hasdrubal's assassination, Hannibal Barca, at the age of 26, was elected by the Carthaginian army to assume supreme command in Iberia. Hannibal, driven by his oath and a keen understanding of Roman vulnerabilities, conceived of a daring plan. Instead of engaging the Romans in a protracted war of attrition, he resolved to strike at the very heart of their republic, Italy itself. He would lead his army on an arduous journey across the Pyrenees mountains, through the treacherous swamps of Gaul and over the towering snow-capped peaks of the Alps. Hannibal's plan was a gamble, a high-stakes wager that could either cripple the Roman Republic or spell disaster for Carthage. In the spring of 218 BC, Hannibal set out from his base in New Carthage, leading his army north towards the Pyrenees mountains. The Carthaginian army, a formidable force numbering some 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants, presented a logistical nightmare. The crossing of the Pyrenees, while arduous, proved less challenging than Hannibal had anticipated. The mountain passes, although treacherous in places, were navigable, and the resistance from local tribes was quickly subdued. The descent from the Pyrenees brought Hannibal's army into the territory of the Gauls, where he needed to secure safe passage and gain their support against Rome. Hannibal's army, now swelled by Gallic recruits, stood at the foot of the Alps, a formidable natural barrier. The sight of the towering peaks, their slopes cloaked in snow and ice, was enough to demoralize even the most hardened veteran. The air grew thin and icy, the terrain treacherous, and the threat of ambush from hostile tribes ever present. Men and animals succumbed to the freezing conditions, their bodies littering the paths. Avalanches threatened entire companies and food supplies dwindled. Yet, Hannibal remained resolute, rallying his troops, inspiring them with tales of past victories and the glory that awaited them in Rome. By the time they descended into Italy, their numbers had been significantly reduced, yet Hannibal had achieved the unthinkable. Emerging from the Alps, Hannibal's exhausted army, a shadow of its former strength, found themselves in the territory of the Taurini, a Gallic tribe hostile to Rome. The sight of the ragged but determined Carthaginian force, having miraculously traversed the Alps, sent shockwaves through the region. The Romans, confident in the natural defences of the Alps, had not anticipated such a daring manoeuvre. Hannibal's arrival in Italy caught them completely off guard, throwing their strategic calculations into disarray. Hannibal, a master strategist, knew that he had to act swiftly and decisively to capitalize on the element of surprise. He needed to replenish his depleted ranks, secure supplies, and rally the Gallic tribes to his cause. He understood that time was of the essence, for the Roman legions, though initially caught off guard, would soon be mobilized to confront him. Hannibal's immediate objective was to restore the morale of his weary troops and demonstrate the vulnerability of Roman power on Italian soil. The Roman Senate, alarmed by the defeat at Ticinus, dispatched a larger force under consul Publius Cornelius Scipio to confront Hannibal. The two armies met near the Trebia River in December 218 BC. The Battle of Trebia was a resounding victory for Hannibal, showcasing his strategic brilliance. Hannibal positioned his troops on the banks of the Trebia River, hidden from view. He sent his Numidian cavalry to harass the Romans, drawing them into a trap. The Roman defeat was comprehensive, sending shockwaves through the Republic. Hannibal's victories emboldened his Gallic allies, swelling his ranks. The Roman Senate prepared for a full-scale confrontation, unaware the worst was yet to come. The year 217 BC dawned with Rome reeling from defeats at Ticinus and Trebia. The invincible Roman legions had been humbled by Hannibal Barca. The Senate appointed Gaius Flaminius Nepos as consul to defeat Hannibal. Flaminius, eager to engage, gathered a fresh army. Hannibal anticipated Flaminius's eagerness and laid a trap. He led his armies south, provoking Flaminius into pursuit. Flaminius took the bait, abandoning caution. Hannibal led his pursuers into a killing ground. Near Lake Trasimene, the terrain was perfect for an ambush. A thick fog blanketed the area, shrouding the landscape. The Romans marched blindly into Hannibal's trap. The Battle of Cannae, fought in August 216 BC near the village of Cannae in southeastern Italy, stands as a testament to Hannibal's strategic genius and his mastery of battlefield tactics. It is studied to this day in military academies around the world. A chilling example of how a numerically inferior force, through a combination of brilliant planning and tactical execution, can achieve a decisive victory against a larger and, on paper, more powerful enemy. The Roman Senate, desperate to avenge the disaster at Lake Trasimene and crush the Carthaginian threat once and for all, had assembled the largest army in their history. Led by the consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, the Roman army at Cannae numbered some 86,000 men, a formidable force arrayed against Hannibal's smaller army of approximately 50,000. The stage was set for a titanic clash, a battle that would determine the fate of Rome and the course of Western civilization. Hannibal, outnumbered but not outmaneuvered, had carefully chosen the battlefield. The open plains of Cannae favoured his superior cavalry, and he had devised a daring plan to exploit the Romans' predictable tactics. He deployed his army in a crescent formation, with his strongest infantry units positioned at the centre, deliberately inviting a Roman attack. His cavalry, under the command of his skilled lieutenants, was positioned on the flanks, ready to deliver the killing blow. The aftermath of Cannae sent shockwaves throughout the ancient world. Rome, the seemingly invincible power, had suffered a defeat of unimaginable proportions. The road to Rome lay open, inviting Hannibal to march on the heart of the Republic. Yet Hannibal hesitated. Some historians argue that this hesitation was his undoing. His army, though victorious, was too depleted to lay siege to the heavily fortified city. Hannibal, a master of psychological warfare, understood the true value of his victory. The years following Cannae were a time of shifting alliances and brutal attrition. The Roman Senate, though shaken by the defeats inflicted by Hannibal, refused to surrender. They understood that their very survival depended on adapting to this new kind of warfare, on countering Hannibal's strategic brilliance with their own tenacity and resourcefulness. They appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus Verrucosus as dictator, a position of absolute power granted during times of extreme crisis. Fabius, a shrewd and cautious general, understood that confronting Hannibal head-on the Carthaginians' terms was a recipe for disaster. Fabius implemented a strategy that would later become known as Fabian strategy, a war of attrition designed to wear down the enemy without risking a decisive engagement. He shadowed Hannibal's movements, harassing his supply lines and exploiting any opportunity to engage in skirmishes on favourable terms. Fabius understood that time was on Rome's side. Hannibal, operating far from his supply bases in Iberia, was reliant on foraging and the uncertain loyalty of his Italian allies. The Fabian strategy, while strategically sound, was unpopular with the Roman populace. It ran counter to their martial traditions, their expectation of decisive victories and glorious conquests. Fabius, often criticized for his cautious approach, was dubbed cunctator, meaning the delayer. Yet his strategy, however frustrating in the short term, would prove crucial in turning the tide of the war. While Hannibal campaigned in Italy, the fortunes of war shifted on other fronts. His brother, Hannibal Barca, raised reinforcements in Iberia, aiming to join Hannibal in Italy. The arrival of a second Carthaginian army, led by Hasdrubal, would have been devastating to Rome. However, fate had other plans. Hasdrubal crossed the Alps, but faced logistical difficulties and Roman defences. Near the Metaurus River, his army was intercepted. The Battle of the Metaurus was a turning point. The Carthaginian army was routed. Hasdrubal died fighting bravely. The Roman victory crushed Hannibal's ambitions. For years, Hannibal had waged war on Roman soil, inflicting devastating defeats and shaking the foundations of their republic. Yet, despite his tactical brilliance and the psychological impact of his victories, he had been unable to deliver a decisive blow. The Roman war machine, though battered and bruised, had proven remarkably resilient. Now, after more than a decade of campaigning in Italy, the tide had turned. In 203 BC, with his forces depleted and his hopes of reinforcements dashed, Hannibal received a summons from the Carthaginian Senate: return to Africa and defend the homeland. The Second Punic War, a conflict that had raged for over 15 years, was about to reach its climax. A young Roman general, Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Scipio Africanus, had proven himself a formidable adversary, retaking Carthaginian territories in Iberia and threatening Carthage itself. Hannibal, leaving behind a veteran army that had fought valiantly alongside him for so long, returned to Africa to face his destiny. In 202 BC, near the town of Zama Regia in North Africa, the two armies clashed in a battle that would decide the fate of both empires. The Battle of Zama, a clash of titans, pitted Hannibal's strategic genius against Scipio's tactical innovations and Roman discipline. It was a clash of civilizations, a final confrontation between two of the greatest military minds of the ancient world. Hannibal's military genius was not just in commanding troops. He read and exploited the battlefield's terrain. He chose battlegrounds that amplified his strengths and lured his Roman adversaries into traps. At Trebia, he used the icy river as a weapon, ambushing Romans as they crossed. At Lake Trasimene, he used dense fog to conceal his troops and ambush the Romans. At Cannae, the open plains favoured his cavalry, outflanking the Roman legions. Hannibal's understanding of terrain turned battlefields into deadly traps. Hannibal's armies were not only masters of strategy and battlefield tactics, but were also equipped with weapons and armour that often surpassed those of their Roman adversaries. The Iberian sword, known as the, was a testament to the craftsmanship of Hannibal's Iberian allies and a weapon that struck fear into the hearts of Roman legionaries. Forged from high-quality iron, the featured a distinctive curved blade that was both devastatingly effective in close combat and capable of delivering powerful slashing blows from horseback. The S-curved blade design allowed for a greater concentration of force at the point of impact, making it particularly effective at piercing through Roman armour, which, while generally of good quality, was not always designed to withstand such blows. Moreover, the S design enabled warriors to hook and disengage Roman shields, creating an opening for a fatal thrust. The psychological impact of this weapon on the Roman soldiers who faced it in battle should not be underestimated. The adoption and integration of the into his army's arsenal showcased Hannibal's pragmatic approach to warfare. He recognized the quality of this weapon and its effectiveness against the Roman legions, readily incorporating it into his tactical doctrine. In the hands of Hannibal's skilled Iberian warriors, became a symbol of Carthaginian military might and a testament to Hannibal's willingness to embrace innovative weaponry. Hannibal understood that victory on the battlefield often hinged on exploiting one's strengths and neutralizing the enemy's advantages. He recognized the strategic importance of cavalry, particularly the light, highly mobile horsemen from Numidia, a region in North Africa renowned for its skilled riders and swift horses. Hannibal's Numidian cavalry, often deployed on the flanks of his formations or as a rapid response force, played a pivotal role in many of his victories. The Numidian horsemen were masters of mounted warfare, renowned for their speed, agility, and their ability to rain down javelins upon the enemy with deadly accuracy. They were lightly equipped, typically wearing little armor and armed with javelins and a short sword. Their tactics focused on harassment, flanking maneuvers, and exploiting breakthroughs in the enemy lines. They were particularly effective at disrupting Roman formations, disrupting their carefully ordered ranks, and creating chaos that Hannibal's infantry could then exploit. The Battle of Cannae showcased the devastating effectiveness of Hannibal's cavalry. While his infantry engaged the Roman legions in the center, Hannibal's cavalry, having routed their Roman counterparts, swung around to attack the Roman rear, trapping the legions in a deadly pincer movement. The Roman army, surrounded and under attack from all sides, was annihilated. The Numidian cavalry, with their speed, agility and skill, had played a decisive role in one of the greatest military victories of all time. Hannibal's war elephants, colossal beasts from North Africa, were iconic and awe-inspiring. They served as psychological warfare and powerful agents of disruption. Their sight, with tusks fitted with blades, unnerved seasoned Roman soldiers. Trained to charge, they broke through disciplined lines. Their trumpeting calls added to the chaos, disrupting maneuvers. However, elephants were unpredictable and could turn on their own troops. Romans adapted, using archers and creating gaps to counter them. The Battle of Zama, a resounding Roman victory, marked the end of Hannibal's winning streak and the decline of Carthaginian power. Forced to accept a humiliating peace treaty, Carthage was stripped of its overseas territories, its fleet reduced to a mere shadow of its former glory. Hannibal, once the conqueror who had brought Rome to the brink of defeat, returned to a Carthage humbled and diminished. The price of his defiance, while etched in legend, had been costly. Despite his military genius and his unwavering dedication to Carthage, Hannibal's legacy in his own time was a complex and often tragic one. While revered by his troops and respected, albeit grudgingly, by his enemies, he was ultimately unable to save Carthage from its fate. The Roman Senate, scarred by the memory of Hannibal's campaigns and determined to prevent any future resurgence of Carthaginian power, pursued a policy of systematic dismantling of Carthage's remaining strength. Hannibal, in the aftermath of Zama, demonstrated his political acumen serving as a magistrate and implementing reforms aimed at revitalizing Carthage's economy and restoring its civic institutions. However, his efforts to rebuild his beloved city were met with suspicion by both his political rivals in Carthage and by the ever-watchful eyes of Rome. Accused of conspiring with the Seleucid Empire against Rome, Hannibal was forced into exile, a bitter pill to swallow, for a man who had dedicated his life to serving his city. While Hannibal's ultimate goal of defeating Rome and securing Carthage's dominance proved elusive, his impact on military history is undeniable. His campaigns, particularly his audacious crossing of the Alps and his stunning victory at Cannae, are still studied in military academies around the world. Testaments to his strategic brilliance, his tactical innovations, and his ability to inspire his troops to achieve the seemingly impossible. Hannibal's understanding of terrain, his use of combined arms tactics, and his mastery of psychological warfare set him apart as a military commander of the highest caliber. He understood that victory on the battlefield was not solely about numbers or brute force, but about outmaneuvering, outthinking, and outmaneuvering the enemy. His ability to adapt to changing circumstances, to exploit his enemy's weaknesses, and to maintain the initiative even when facing seemingly insurmountable odds, cemented his reputation as one of the greatest military minds in history. Hannibal's influence on military thought can be traced through the centuries, from the Roman generals who ultimately defeated him to Napoleon Bonaparte, who, centuries later, would study Hannibal's campaigns and draw inspiration from his daring maneuvers. His use of encirclement at Cannae, his understanding of the importance of maintaining the initiative, and his ability to exploit psychological warfare have influenced military strategists for generations. Though ultimately defeated, Hannibal Barca's legacy transcends the outcome of the Second Punic War. He remains a figure of fascination and admiration, a symbol of defiance against overwhelming odds, and a testament to the power of human ingenuity and determination. His story, a tale of ambition, brilliance, and ultimate tragedy, continues to capture the imagination, reminding us that even in defeat there can be a certain grandeur, a certain nobility of spirit that transcends the vagaries of fortune. Hannibal's story is a reminder that history is not simply a linear progression of victories and defeats, but a complex tapestry woven from the threads of individual lives, ambitions, and the often unpredictable hand of fate. It is a story that challenges us to reconsider our own perceptions of victory and defeat, reminding us that true greatness lies not always in achieving one's ultimate goals, but in the courage and tenacity displayed in the face of adversity. Hannibal Barca, the conqueror who crossed the Alps, the strategist who outmaneuvered Rome's legions, the general who challenged an empire and nearly brought it to its knees, may have died in exile, his dreams of Carthage's triumph unfulfilled. Yet his legacy lives on, not in the annals of conquest, but in the enduring power of his story, a story that continues to inspire, to challenge, and to remind us of the indomitable spirit of the human will.